Boo! Yeah, as you see, I'm in the cave. This is very scary. And apparently the bear had something to eat. Oh my god. And I got something here. Kaimak, here. I got a bone for you. Come here. Come here, boy. Look at him. Come here, come here. Come on, come on. Take it. There you go, boy. Good boy. I don't want the bone from the bear, maybe. Well, yeah. I finally got the flashlight. I forgot it in Zakopane. But I'm here in the cave, you know, because actually we were here before. We took a picture of some building, yeah. And apparently there was a cave around here. I didn't know about it. I know there's another cave somewhere nearby, but it's actually very dangerous, and it's actually called English Cave, Kaimak. Kaimak. Don't go there, because an English person, you know, went there and fell. So this is basically, it's not very original, the name, but you know, what are you gonna do? Hey, Kaimak, I actually gotta be paying attention. Here, stay there. Senta, sit, sit. Good boy. But yeah, I thought, you know, we were out of power and electricity for several days, actually. And, you know, that's why I'm doing this today and not in the days before as planned. But, you know, we were, in some days we were not allowed to explore because it's very foggy and there's the wildlife, as I explained some time ago, around here, which apparently is true because I see a skull right there. Somebody had an appetizer, yeah, probably a bear. And some days we are actually allowed because, you know, it is sunny or it's foggy, but it's not as foggy, yeah, and we can go around and explore. Some spider web. But yeah, basically this is why we came here, because we'll be leaving shortly, actually, and finally getting to, oh my God, getting to climb the mountain, finally, as we already did the path. There's like a trekking path around here when we did it last week, so I think I'm ready. He's not ready. He's gonna stay in a hotel because he's definitely not ready. And yeah, it's been very foggy, not as sunny. It was sunny a few days ago, but mostly foggy. And it reminded me of the Blair Witch Project because, well, apparently there's a fence there, so the monsters will not come out. It'll keep the monsters out of, you know, wherever I am. I don't even know the name of this. But yeah, anyway, going back to getting to the point, which is the cyber news show, yeah, or the cyber security news show. Kaimak, stop. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, if anyone catches this footage, lost footage, you know what happened to me, yeah? I was just joking. It's just like the Blair Witch Project. I even ran out of battery in the phone. It was a whole thing. But anyway, I hope we will survive and this footage will not be found, but it will be streamed online as it was planned. But yeah, despite this unusual location, yeah, we actually have some interesting stories from last week to this week, yeah. So first, actually, what I want to talk about is another software supply chain attack that happened and affected the SDK of Injective JavaScript, if I'm remembering correctly. So, you know, it's a compromised trusted package, yeah, attempting to steal cryptocurrency wallet credentials, yeah. And there's another reminder, you know, that sometimes the biggest cybersecurity risks, you know, come from the software we already depend on, yeah, we already trust. So it was something we're talking about in the museum, yeah. And then there's a story about Japan, where there was a major telecommunications provider that reported a breach, yeah, that affected mainly, you know, around 12 million email addresses, if I remember correctly. Some other reports said something else, but basically this will tell us why telecom companies are so valuable, yeah, they are such valuable targets, and what incidents like this mean for the ordinary users. Hey, get out of there. But yeah, basically this is what I want to touch on this week. And Kaimak, please, just stop, okay? This is already dangerous enough, yeah? So as always, you know, I'm not just reading the headlines or skimming through the articles. I'm actually analyzing and doing some research and then attempting to talk about it whenever I can. And it's allowed. And I have all the technical equipment working and all the conditions. So whether you're watching right now in the stream or you found the footage in the middle of the cave, you know, I want to thank you for joining me. It means a lot. And yeah, skip that. I'm not gonna do it this way. So I'm just gonna begin with the first story. I was trying to be like an anchor or something like that, like the other guys from the Cyber News show. So in the first story, the software supply chain attack, yeah, that attacked this Injective ecosystem, yeah. So before I actually talk about the attack itself, yeah, we gotta answer, yo, simple question. Maybe this was a bad idea. Senta. This dog is not cooperating today. Sit. So yeah, car manufacturer gets parts from different suppliers, and it's the same for software, yeah? So they are relying on libraries, as we were talking about before, frameworks and packages, yeah, so like a couple of weeks ago in the museum, that are created by other developers. So one of the biggest places to download some of those libraries, yeah, some of those packages, please just stop, Kaimak. It's the NPM, yeah, so it contains millions of JavaScript packages, used by many developers, yeah, and developed by many people, yeah, so all over the world. So this is advantage, yeah, it's obvious, yeah, because instead of spending days, yeah, writing a feature, you can just install something, yeah, with a single command on the NPM utility, yeah. But the downside, as we see from a cybersecurity point of view, is you trusting someone else's code, yeah. Sometimes that trusted code ends up fine, but if it is compromised, yeah, I was trying to center myself. The consequences, yeah, can spread very quickly, as we saw from this news. That's exactly what happened, yeah, in this. It's kind of freaking me out. In this case, yeah, because the legitimate maintainers, yeah, so in this case, a GitHub account, yeah, was compromised. So this wasn't a fake package. It wasn't someone pretending, yeah, to be Injective, yeah. No pun intended. It was the real project, yeah. So using that compromised account, yeah, basically the attackers published a malicious version of it, yeah. And that distinction is incredibly important, yeah, from the original to the new one, to the malicious one, because this wasn't any linear attack, trivial attack. Was downloading, is putting a malicious package and downloading the wrong package. So someone who trusted the official SDK, always trusting the official SDK, could have uninstalled in some cases the malicious version, yeah, without suspecting anything, because it is signed, yeah, it is trusted, it is signed with trust, yeah. So yeah, it intercepted the wallet's private key, yeah, encrypting private key. It wasn't noisy. It didn't really encrypt any files. It wasn't crashing any computers. It's code, yeah. It just quietly waited until the application, yeah, created or imported a cryptocurrency wallet. And at that moment, what happened was that the malware intercepted the wallet's private key, yeah. And from there, the mnemonic as well, or the recovery phrase, yeah. So those secrets were then sent to an attacker control server. This was probably a very bad idea. This guy's obviously like a legitimate, telemetry traffic, yeah. So it wouldn't be suspected, yeah. So this is why this is so serious, yeah. So basically the recovery phrase is essentially like the master key, yeah, to the funds, to the wallet. Yeah. So if someone steals it, they don't need a password. They don't need anything. They don't need your computer, yeah. They can simply restore the wallet from their side, yeah, on another device, and then transfer the cryptocurrency, funds away to them, yeah. So unlike a traditional bank, there's usually, no customer support to reverse this, nothing like that, yeah. Those kind of transactions, yeah. Once it's gone, it's usually gone, yeah. So this is another reason why this story actually mattered. It was the scale of it, yeah. So the affected SDK, normally receives around like 50,000 downloads maybe, so every week, yeah, from what I saw. And according to the article from the Ox Security, there were also like 87 packages that depended on his SDK. So even though, you know, only one package was directly compromised, as we were talking just now, the potential impact obviously spreads around. It extends much further, yeah. Obviously through the supply chain, yeah, the software supply chain. But fortunately, there's also actually some good news from this, because security researchers, yeah, including on Step Security and the Ox Security articles, yeah, they detected the malicious package very quickly, yeah. So the response was very quick, and the compromised version was essentially removed shortly after, yeah. And the access to the compromised account obviously was revoked as well. So a clean version was put up, yeah, was published, and also according to the Injective, yeah, there's currently like no evidence that users actually, you know, lost funds. So from the article, but it's not very set in stone, or it's not very clear yet. But the most interesting part of all of this isn't really the malware, in my opinion. It's the strategy that happened here. So cybersecurity definitely has changed dramatically, as we've been talking about the last few weeks, yeah. And they've been changing dramatically over the last few years. So attackers, more and more, yeah, they don't attack their final victims. Instead, they attack someone else, yeah, or some other infrastructure. So something they trust, a software vendor, a developer, yeah, like a pipeline or a repository in this case, yeah, because, you know, you have that trusted relationship, and if that is compromised, you know, then the malicious code can spread itself, if not easily, like better, yeah, or there's a better probability or a higher probability of that happening. And there were many cases in the past. I remember the SolarWinds when I was working in State Street. They didn't really address any of that, but, you know, the principle is the same: is don't attack one company, attack the software that thousands of people depend on, yeah. So this is mainly what the story is about. So if you're a developer, there are several lessons here, yeah, I think. And you cannot assume that that's the thing that I also do as well. You cannot assume that an official package is legit. Official repositories can be compromised, yeah. You gotta pay attention to unexpected updates, yeah. So you can, you know, update pops up on the terminal and saying you gotta update it, you gotta investigate on it and see what actually changed, yeah, on these dependencies. And also that organizations, you know, they should use a software, you know, analysis tools, yeah, like, and they should do a better monitoring or code signing verification even, I would say. So whenever possible and where possible, yeah. No solution is perfect, I'll give you that, but reducing the blind trust, you know, is more and more important, as we see, yeah, from this news. So if you've never, you know, written a single line of code, yeah, you know, this story matters, because even the app on your phone, I'm talking to the average Joe here, and almost every website or service you visit depends on open source software, yeah. So when attackers, you know, find ways to compromise this package, as we've been talking about, or these ecosystems, this is not just targeting developers, it's to target the trust, as we talk about, the modern software that is built upon, yeah, of the modern software is built upon, but also to attack the end users, yeah. I think it's one of the stories as well. And what I take away from this as well is that the future cybersecurity is not just about protecting, again, these infrastructures, yeah, as we've talked about, and usually is done on the blue teaming side. It's to protect the software and the software supply chain, yeah. So this is definitely the thing that I take away from it, and also from what we've seen in the past few weeks in some of the news, yeah. So this is mainly the thing I wanted to mention. Now, the second part, because I want to go along here, takes us to Japan, which I would love to be in, because I don't want to be here right now. It's kind of freaking me out, this place. So they confirmed that a cyber attack, you know, exposed more than 12 million addresses, yeah, in this telecoms company. And about 7.5 or 7.6 passwords were, you know, breached, yeah. So the numbers alone are staggering, yeah, they're very frightening. They give me the jeepers, yeah, the creepers, or whatever they say. Forget now the term. Yeah, but basically, this affected KDDI. So KDDI, if you never heard of it, is Japan's like if not the biggest, like the second biggest telco provider, yeah, and is serving millions of customers, yeah. So and also operating infrastructure used by internet service providers and also by government facilities, yeah. So this is where the story is actually interesting, because this wasn't just an attack against again one company; it's against the whole whole thing of consumer email service, yeah, and of a shared platform, yeah, that the KDDI operates, yeah, for multiple internet service providers. So basically what it means is one platform is supporting, several different companies, yeah. And we've seen this in the past as well when we're talking about this Uni app in a different way, yeah. So basically, one successful attack had consequences across, multiple organizations. This is essentially what it means, yeah. And according to the company, yeah, the attack exploited, vulnerabilities again in third-party software, so used by that email platform, yeah. So this is just not someone guessing passwords, definitely. This is not even a phishing campaign or an insider threat, yeah. This story, isn't exactly the same thing as in other cases we saw in the past, or even from the story before, although it has a very similar lesson. So modern organizations, they don't build everything themselves, yeah, obviously, because they're depending on third-party software and cloud services and whatever, like shared infrastructure, for the obvious reasons that they need to cut on time and build things efficiently, yeah, with efficiency. Yeah, but obviously sharing risk in this case. And everyone depending on all of this, yeah, these packages and these third-party libraries can be essentially, targeted, yeah. This is what happens. So they confirm, yeah, this KDDI, as I said, that there was a lot of emails, like 12 million around there, million addresses, email addresses, and 7.5 passwords that were exposed from there, yeah. And the company was explaining that some of these passwords were stored using, cryptographic protection, whatever it may be. They mentioned like hashing and encryption, normal stuff, but not every password had the same level of protection. This was the thing that caught my attention. And they really didn't publicly disclose like how many of those passwords fell into each, bucket, into each category. Now, some people might think, it's only an email address. What can you do what can you do with it from an attacker's perspective? An email address, as I've been guilty in the past, often can be used in many places and can be used as the beginning of an attack. So if you know the email address, you can launch a targeted phishing campaign, for example, for many of the popular websites, whatever it may be. Do some stuffing attacks, yeah, using passwords stolen from other breaches, because the user can use similar password, or do impersonation from trusted companies to trick the users into revealing their password or more information even. So this is why, cybersecurity professionals, yeah, stay there, often say, that breaches don't happen in isolation, and this is true. Yeah, one breach is creating many opportunities for the next one or other type of attacks, whatever it may be. And this is especially true if people are using passwords. So if you imagine someone using the same password for their email, for their streaming service account or online shopping, e-commerce, or even their work-related account, yeah, if attackers have that password once, they'll almost certainly try it, everywhere else. Yeah. So this is the credential stuffing I was mentioning. Yeah. And unfortunately, it still works nowadays. Yeah, because a lot of the password reuse is extremely common. Yeah. Well, the good news, yeah, is that the KDDI did respond fairly quickly. Yeah, stay there, in Eurobond. So after detecting this unauthorized access, so the company essentially patched the exploited vulnerability and modified the affected systems. Also added a forensic investigation, yeah, DFIR investigation, and obviously went to the internet service providers that were affected to require password changes, the whole, yada yada, yeah, on impacted users. So actually, according to them, there's currently like no confirmed evidence of, like other type of secondary damage, like a widespread account abuse or something like that, resulting from this incident. But, the investigations, from what I see from the articles and even the submitted report, It's in Japanese, I did have to translate it. This is still an ongoing situation. So what I learned from this particular story, from this news, is that for organizations, this is just another reminder, that cybersecurity doesn't stop in your own backyard, in your own infrastructure. You need to understand the risks that you are introducing by the third-party software that you're implementing, and the shared infrastructure that you are using. So a single vulnerability inside a shared platform, can actually affect, millions of users in this case, and it can be across multiple companies as well. For individuals, and users, the advice is the same, Unique passwords, MFA, we've talked about this in the past. It's kind of the same all over and over. I don't know how they do this for so long, the cyber news shows. And to change the password there, especially after a breach. Usually, we got like the Troy Hunt platform, I've been pwned, I think that was the name. And people, change the password when they get the email a warning about that. So also it shows us this attack that the trust, inside the software we adopt, can be breached, can be broken, especially on the shared infrastructure. These can create a single point of failure. Kaimak. Stop. Different attacks, different attack vectors. Well, different attackers. I'm trying to run through this because also the dog is getting a bit scared. My dog just went away. I hope he'll be fine. But the first story I want to mention is about artificial intelligence, actually, yet again, but more specifically about a brand new attack, actually, that I found interesting, which they coined it HalluSquatting, So at first the name sounds a little bit strange, in this, I forget where from and what exactly the group is, but they had a question. So what happens if attackers, they ask a question themselves, what happens if attackers take advantage of that hallucination effect on AI? So the result is this technique. The technique actually called like adversarial HalluSquatting. That's the actual name. So basically, imagine a brand new GitHub repository that becomes, popular, and thousands of developers, Kaimak, start asking, the AI bot, coding assistant, to clone it. So the problem is because the repository is new, many of the AI models don't actually know its correct address. So instead they guess, So large language models, they sometimes make things up, in artificial intelligence. That's called the hallucination effect, So for example, you ask an AI, for a book that doesn't exist or a website that isn't real, hasn't been created at least, hasn't been created at least yet, So the AI sounds confident, but the answer is going to be completely fabricated, It happens in many cases when you give many prompts, Some researchers from I don't know where, they made this investigation or this work, this research. They asked the question that what happens if attackers take advantage of the same phenomenon, of the same effect of the hallucination. So the result is the technique that they coined it actually adversarial HalluSquatting. That was the name. So if you imagine a new GitHub repository that becomes popular, a lot of developers are going to start asking their AI, like coding assistants or bot they developed, to clone it, to pull it up. But the problem is that because the repository is new, many of these AI models don't actually know where to point and to get this project from. So instead they are guessing, and a lot of it based on searches and stuff like that. So over a repository name, that sounds perfectly reasonable. But the clever part is, from what they were talking about in this research, they discovered that a lot of these hallucinations, they can be surprisingly predictable, So different AI models, they often invent the same incorrect repository names, And that means that an attacker can now predict what names the AI usually or is likely to invent or to give, before anyone else does. So the attacker is basically simply registering fake repositories based on those names on GitHub, an example. And now imagine a developer saying, clone the latest repository XYZ, using this AI coding assistant, instead of finding the legitimate project, yeah, the assistant, is going to get the fake fake repository based on the hallucination that the attacker put up, yeah. So it downloads it, it trusts it, and then if AI assistant has the permission, to execute the commands, yeah, it may also run the malicious code intended by the attacker, yeah. So basically, the attacker, he never hacked GitHub, as we've seen in the past. There were some news, or never compromised the real repository, like it happened in the first story. They use the AI to make a predictable mistake, yeah, on the names, and that's what makes this attack very different from traditional even typo squatting, because the typo squatting usually depends on humans making, mistakes, like spelling mistakes. That's where the name comes from. So you type, Google with 5 O's, let's say, instead of 3 O's or 2 O's, actually. It's very different from HalluSquatting. That's the typo squatting. So the human doesn't make the mistake. In this case, the AI is doing the mistake, yeah? And so because people tend to trust their AI assistant, yeah, they rarely question the result. Even I am guilty of that, yeah, trusting the AI on many of the prompts I put, yeah. And so this can happen in many things, yeah, on many coding assistants like Copilot or Gemini or the GitHub even. So the results actually were concerning from the research, because GitHub repositories, yeah, the underlying models, according to the research, they hallucinated the repository names at very high rates. So in some scenarios, even they were saying that they observe rates as high as like 85%. Yeah. So for an AI, yeah, for AI skills, this reached almost 100%, and that doesn't mean exactly that every attack will be, successful, but it does show that the hallucinations, that is the fact that we're talking about, are very common, and they're common enough to become a real security issue, yeah, security problem, yeah. So don't eat that. Also demonstrates, that this can be used for remote code execution against many real-world applications, yeah. That's definitely the thing. And yeah, it's showing that attacker-controlled code could actually be executed through AI assistants in this case. So it's very, very concerning. And this is why they are describing this attack as the potential way for building an agentic botnet, as was mentioned in some, at least I think there was some news article about that we were talking about some time ago, or at least it was in the news I saw, yeah. So if they all download the same malicious repository, yeah, people, yeah, the attacker doesn't have